detailedly about validation. Yesterday, I just given one overview, but we will make a detailed point about validation, how validation works in forms. So, we are going to learn about formic validation. Formic validation, how we can handle validation. Formic validation, few points already we know. Validation is the process of verifying user input. It is the process of verifying user input. And why you need validation? It is required to ensure that contradictory and unauthorized data is not get stored into database. It is required to make sure that contradictory and unauthorized data is not get stored into the database. Contradictory is nothing but it is expecting some type and we are sending some another type. Suppose you are expecting a number but a string is sent. That is contradictory. Unauthorized means we are expecting certain limit of data. It is more than the limit. That is unauthorized. So we can handle such validation. Actually, HTML forms provide uh, built-in built-in validations. HTML forms provide built-in validations like you have required validations like required, like min length, like pattern, like min max, etc. So many built-in validations are present. So what is advantage is without writing validation, they can verify. But what is drawback is those validations are not according to our requirements. Means all are not according to our requirements. That's the reason we prefer writing our own validation. So there are so many validations, but they are not completely according to our requirement. So that's the reason we prefer writing our own validation. So you can add custom validation. You can add custom validation by disabling default validations. How to disable default validation? One important question, how to disable default HTML validations. Actually, HTML form validations. Answer, by using form no validate attribute. By using form no validate attribute, you can disable default HTML form validation. how we can handle the validation. And already I showed you yesterday, when we write a form, we use no validate. You can disable validation. So, how to add custom validation? How you can add custom validation? Hmm. Generally, how we can add custom validation is we can write our own functions and attach them to Formic. So let's see that concept. So custom validation, how we can handle custom validation. So in that first point, create a new validation function that takes the form data, verifies the data, and return errors. Create a new validation function that takes the form data, verifies the data, and return errors. So we can take the form data, verify the data, and return error. So how to do that? We need a function, validation function that takes data, and it will have errors, object, and logic to verify data. Then it should return errors and stop. That's how we have to create a function. Data is nothing but that is the form data. Now, this function is attached to Formic. So, Formic can use the validation function. How to use the validation function? LET. So we say constant Formic, use Formic. In that initial values, in that we have validation function. That means it have on submit validate. Validate uses validation function and other details, you know. So the validation function. Now, how to display the errors? To display the errors, Formic returns errors object that contains error message of every field. So how to display that? Formic dot errors dot field name. It is going to get the error of that field and display. Formic is having an errors object, and by using that errors object, it can display the errors. So you are writing your own validations and you are verifying. So first three stages are there. First step, you write a function for verifying, attach the function to Formic and display the errors. And how to verify that depends on your JavaScript. That means, for example, let's see. Let's open this project. Yesterday already I showed you. Okay. Today I will upload a Git link for this project. In the classroom, I will upload a Git link where you will get updated everyday project contents. So yesterday what we done, we created a validate user. It will take form data and it will return the errors. Logic depends on your requirement. So for example, username required. Suppose we have username length more than 4 characters we want. Then we write condition form data dot what username dot length is less than 4. If it is less than 4, errors dot username, there I want to display name too short. That's what. For example, for mobile, I have to verify is mobile matching with a specific pattern or not. Then if form data dot mobile, what is it? So mobile is a string dot match with what regular expression. It is written in double slash. What is it? Exponent slash plus 91 slash d 10 digit number and dollar. You know, regular expression is defined in double slash and expression starts with exponent, ends with dollar. That's a general thing. And if it is matching, then what should happen? Very important is if it is matching, mobile is verified. Otherwise, it will show error, means empty. If it is matching, errors dot mobile, you keep empty. If it is not matching, what we have to do? We need to display errors dot mobile. We have to display invalid mobile. If it is matching, don't show any message. If it is not matching, then display. Your wish, you can write anything according to your requirements. For example, what this is going to do, it returns true. Na? Sometimes people have an habit of writing like this. What does it means? If it is not matching, if it is not matching, that means if it is not true, then what it is false. Then what we do? We will display the message as what invalid mobile. Otherwise, don't show anything. So this is how we can write validation. For example, suppose there is a drop down. We have a data term. So your city. We have an data select. Select have an option. Choose city. And here we have an option Delhi. And we have an option Hyderabad like this. And very important, first one is not a city. Then it is not among the list. Then we will give a value as -1. What is this? Actually, value -1, it is a tradition, because usually index number starts with 0. -1 means it is not among our list. That is a tradition. You can give anything, right? And this will have a name called city. It will have on change. What is it? Formic dot what? Handle change. Every element needs on change, and every element needs a name. And one more extra I am adding here. In the formic, we need one more. What is it? City. City by default is -1. You can put any initialized value into that. We can put -1. Okay. For example, you are having radio button. But first question, how you verify this? How to verify whether city is selected or not? Then you have one more. What is it? If form data dot city is equal to -1. What does it means? Then errors dot city. I want to display error. Please select city. Some message we want to display. And observe here, if that is not selected, here display the message. How to display message? Formic dot what? Errors. Which error? City. And I will put here as class text danger, like this I'm giving. Now I'm using, so npm run dev. Yeah, I'm using a simple form. In that we have all these details. Now observe, I will open the console, and as of now it is empty, nothing is here. I click on submit, then it should show all the details. You are entering some data, then it says name too short. Now it is fine. You see name too short, after that name required should come. You know how to write the logic. Where should you write the logic? I will write the logic here. So if name is required, okay. If it is length is 0, required. Otherwise what? Else we have another condition. What is that condition? If name length is less than 4, then short. Multiple conditions. You don't need to ask. You have basic knowledge of writing a logic, how to write the logic. So now you can see here it is clicked and it says required. So similarly mobile also, right? Then how do you verify that this is written inside which one? This is written inside else. We have to write this. That means if mobile is there, then verify. Now you are writing here and everything it says required, required, required. I'm entering some data, then it says name too short. Minimum characters. Now it is fine. Mobile is required. You are entering. It is invalid mobile 98765432110. It is invalid because it should start with +91. Now it is fine. Choose a city. You select a city. Now it is okay. I click on submit, then it will submit the data. This is how we write validation. That means if you are asking like how to write for drop down, how to write for text box, how to write for radio, means you don't know JavaScript. What is that? That's a simple JavaScript logic. In JavaScript already you learned how to verify whether a radio selected or not. If you haven't learned that, that means you are not good at JavaScript, because this is all JavaScript logic. We have to just use that. For example, if there are radio buttons, you tell me you learned HTML. If a radio button is not selected, or if a radio button is selected and it is submitted, by default, what it submits in HTML forms, what a radio button and a checkbox will submit. By default, they submit a word called on. On. If you know HTML, you know that. So if a radio button and a checkbox is selected and it is submitted, by default they submit a word called on. That's the reason you learnt in HTML that every radio button needs a value. That means it needs a name and it needs a value. By default, radios will submit that. You know already. For example, in a form, you have input type, suppose radio. So its name is gender, and you say male, something like this. And you observe here. So what happens is, I'm not giving post, I will give get. Okay. Yeah. You observe here, this is HTML form. When I select a radio button and click on submit, it submits as on. That is the default word it submits. By default, HTML radios checkboxes will submit on. So it is mandatory that they need a value. When you give value, then what will happen? They can submit that value. That means I refresh, yeah, and I submit, it will submit the value. Otherwise, they will submit on. Now, how to verify whether a radio is selected or not? If it is submitting the value, then it is selected. If it is not submitting the value, then it is not selected. So you can verify radios, you can verify checkboxes, you can verify anything. All requires logic. You need to write the logic and you need to handle the logic. So uh, if you want just one radio also, I will add. For example, suppose we are having a data term gender. Data definition, input type is radio, so name is gender and value is male, and we have a we have a input and we have a label called male. Same we will use here as what? Female. Okay, here we are using female. How you verify whether a radio is selected or not? I will use the name gender. Okay. Gender. Reasonably doesn't matter. So here you are expecting one more. What is it? Gender. Gender is default empty. Default empty. That means here we write one condition. So what is the condition? So if what is it? Form data dot what? Gender is equal to empty. There is nothing. Then errors dot what? Gender display a message. So please select your gender. Something like this we are displaying. That means what we do. So here we will display the message also. How to display formic dot errors dot which error? Gender. So here we have a class text danger. Okay. And you can see now we have this also. When I enter, it says please select gender. And when you are entering the name, So name is fine. You are entering mobile also fine. You are selecting a city, fine. You select a gender, then you can see it is not doing. You know the reason. Why? Because you haven't attached on change. On change, then it can verify whether it is selected or not. So we have to attach, what is it? On change. Handle formic dot what? Handle change. It will verify on change. Formic dot what? Handle change. And now you can see here when I am entering here all the details. So some mobile number, choose city, and I selected mail, and it is hidden. When I say submit, it is going to get the data and submit the data. It will not allow to submit until or unless everything is valid. You can write any validation. If you are asking a question, how to verify the data means you are not good at logics, because that's what JavaScript teaches you, how to verify, how to write a logic to check whether a value present or not, whether an option selected or not, how much is selected, what is selected. These are all JavaScript logic. According to that, we just put a error message. So this is one concept of validation, but this is again complicated. Why complicated? Because developer have to write every validation manually. We have to write manually, but this is very important. Why? Because several validations we have to write, because built-in options are not enough. Why they are not enough? Because your project requirements may be different, and according to your project requirements, ready-made options are not enough. You have to write your own validation. So how to configure the validations we need to define by using this technique. So this is one concept, how to write custom validation. In this, what we have done, we have written all the validation by ourselves. There is another technique. No need to write like this. Ready-made services are there, third party. You can use those third party services. That means there are third party validation services. What is advantage? They will reduce the effort. You don't need to write validations, ready made are present. But problem is they may not suit all requirements. You need a combination of ready made as well as custom. You can use built-in validation. You have to use along with custom, because all are not satisfied. For example, they give a mobile validation, that is validating some US mobile format, some Japanese mobile format. We don't want that. We want to write our own validation. So let's see how to use built-in validation services. First, I will copy this example. This is a complete example of how to write the validation. So example, this is same form demo dot what js. In this example, we are writing validation. That means here I am writing all the validations manually. We have a validate user. We are verifying every logic, and we are validating the data. Okay, let's see another technique. What is another technique? Ready-made validations are present. You can try them. And one famous validation service is Yup, validation service. You have a third party called Yup. Yup is very famous validation service. And already I explained you what is a service means. Service means predefined logic. Already everything is written. You have to just use it. You have to use. So what is Yup is, it is a third party validation service. It is a third party validation service. It is a schema based validation. Schema provides built-in validation services. Built-in validation services. Schema is a structured process of verifying your data and reporting the errors. So, built-in validation services. You can implement and customize the built-in services. You can implement and customize the built-in services. So ready-made validation services, but it is a third-party service. So how to use this? I will show you one example how we can manage the validation service. What is advantage is you don't need to write much logic. Already it is written, just use it. So how? First point, install yup for project. npm install yup and save. So here two techniques are there. You can import which service you want, or you can import all. That means import the required or all services. So you can import like this: import required, min length, matches, like this from yup library. This is nothing but it is importing only what we need. If you want to import all, then you can use import asterisk as yup from yup. You know, this is a import method of importing all. So what is as? It is alias name. This is general JavaScript. In JavaScript, you know how to import modules. Okay. So import modules, aliasing modules, that is a JavaScript technique of importing all members from a module and accessing through a alias name. So what is as yup? It is an alias name. It is an alias name. Now all the services can be accessed using yup. Yep dot required, ep dot min length, ep dot. Now what we have to do is configure the validation schema for formic. That means constant formic is equal to use formic. In this formic, previously we were having initial values, that is same. After that, this time you have a validation schema, not validation, it will have validation schema. It have validation and validation schema. This validation schema uses yup dot object. This yup object will use a field name and it uses yup dot service name. Actually, app dot type is there and the service name is there. You can define like this. So this is validation. Showing errors is same. There is no difference. How to show the errors? Display errors by using formic errors object. That means what you have to do, formic dot errors dot field name. So this time you are not using validation, you are using validation schema. Validation schema. Let's see how this works. What is advantage is you can reduce logic. You don't need to write every logic. Already built in available, you can just add them and use them. Let's see. What I'm doing is in this, I'm removing this function called validate user. In that almost lot of validation I have written, I will delete this. Okay, then there is no validate user function. Now I deleted all the validation logic. That means now currently there is no validation logic here. Everything is empty. Okay, now what to do? First step, open the terminal, npm install which library? Yup. You install yup library. After that, you import yup. Import asterisk as yup from which library? Yup. Okay. Now inside the formic here, you have to write validation schema. We have to put the validation schema. Here how to write yup dot object. This yup object contains the settings. In that field name, first field name is what? Username. Very recently, from latest version, yup people have made data type mandatory. Earlier they don't have. That means few projects back, old projects, if you see, people who are using yep, they don't need to mention data type, but now they made it mandatory. That means every field name you have to mention which type of data it should handle. So you have to use yep dot string. Username is a string. After that, you can add whatever service you want. And I'm adding required. That's it. And what message, if required, is not satisfied? You put a message inside it. What is the message? Name required. I want min length. Dot min length. Min length is min. Min is we have how many characters? 4. What is the message? Message is name to short, like this. Now we want a validation for next. What is it? Mobile. What is the validation for mobile? Yep. It is also what type? String. It is also required. What is the message? Mobile required. What else? You can add another property. What is it? Matches. Matches with regular expression. Exponent slash plus 91 slash d 10 digits and dollar. If it is not matching, what is the message? Message is what? Invalid mobile. Invalid mobile. Like this, you can add validation for everyone. What is advantage of this? The advantage is very simple. You don't need to write validation already built in. You can use it. Can you tell me what is this technique of writing a function attached to another function? It is called as, that is called as function chaining. In JavaScript, we call this function chaining. And you know, function chaining can use in any order, right? That means you can first write required, after that you can write string, after that you can write matches, anything. This is called function chaining in JavaScript. And you learned how to create such chains in JavaScript. So technically, I am just writing validation for 2. Displaying same, no change. How you show error messages same. But what is problem? I can't write validation for city. Why? Because can you use required for a drop down? No, we cannot use required for a drop down. So you cannot write validation. You cannot write a validation for radios through schema because you don't have built-in options for that. Because we don't know what radios you will have. We don't know about what type of list you will have. That's the reason those you have to write manually again. That's the reason service is good. If it is providing all the features, use it. If it is having certain limitations, then others you fulfill with writing your own validation. Can we write both validation and validation schema? Yes. You can write custom validation default. What is this advantage now? You see, when I click on submit, it shows mobile required, name required. You entered some name too short, it is fine. Mobile, so mobile is invalid, now it is fine. You selected city, you selected gender, submit, it should get that. This time, what you reduce? You reduced the logic. You don't need to write the logic for validation. Ready-made is present, you can use it. Ready-made validations you can handle. How you can do that? By using validation scheme. Ready-made validation schema you can use. So same thing, but one example here. What is the example? Same form demo dot what? JSX. And this time we are using, this time we are using that validation schema. We are using which library? We are using an yep library here. Okay. So how to write validations and how to verify the data. Here one more point is there. Generally, when the validation is working, you can see when the validation is working. Validation is working in two situations. Can you tell what are those? When validation is triggered in two situations. One on submit, another one on change. You click on submit, it is validating, and another one on change, it is validating. But very important is in many websites you see, when I click inside and I don't type anything and click outside, it will validate. That means you can validate on blur also. Actually, that is called blur event. Already I explained the blur event will be there. On focus, on blur, like events will be there. So what is blur event? Blur event indicates what should happen when you lose focus. So what is here, one key point is, one small note I will give here. The default validations are triggered using using the events. The default validations are triggered using the events on change. Actually, formic dot handle change and formic dot handle submit. So you can validate using blur event. You can validate using blur event. So formic dot blur event by adding formic dot handle blur. Formic dot handle blur. So the default validations are triggered using the events on change, handle change, and handle submit. That means syntactically what you have to do is, for every element on change, you have to write formic dot handle change. On blur, you have to write formic dot handle blur. So that is the validation. So you add one more event here. So I'm adding handle blur. So let's go and write here one more on blur. On blur, formic dot handle blur. We have a handle blur. Write this on blur for mobile also. Now, what is the concept here is, when you attach this here, I click inside without entering the name, I click outside, then it will verify. But it is verifying all For this also, we will see the solution. We will learn about how we can handle. We have a form state validation also, we'll see that. But this time it is verifying when you click inside and when you click outside, it is verifying. That means it is working on which event? Blur. So for this, they have one more technique. If you are handling validation on all situations, what are the situations? Three: on submit, on change, on blur. If you want to validate on every situation, then no need of writing like this. There is a shortcut technique. What is the shortcut technique is here? One more option is, if you want any element to use all validation, all events for validation, then if you want any element to use all events for validation, then you can use formic method, get field props. You can use the formic method called get field props. If you want any element to use all events for validation, then you can use this one. Actually, syntactically, how we do that is, you have input type text, name is username. Okay. I want this to use all events. Then you don't need to write all the events. You can do like this: dot 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 formic dot get field props, and which field? Field name is user name. Like this you can write. Simple. And you know that this is a spread operator, na? Dot 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 is a spread operator. In JavaScript you have spread operator. What it is going to do? It will get all the properties of that field, means on change, on blur, all, and spread them. It is going to spread all of them to into that element. So by writing one line, you don't need to write on change now. You don't need to write on blur. Which one is best? Writing individually or using this? Writing individually using this depends, because if you use this, it will unnecessarily verify on blur also. But in some cases, I don't want to verify on blur. That means on change mandatory, but on blur is not mandatory. We want to verify only on change, not on blur. Then don't try this, because it will add all the events. If you want any specific event, then write manually. If you want all events, then you can write in this way. What is advantage? Individually, you don't need to write. So for what you will do now, in every element, instead of writing on change, on blur, what you do is, here, instead of writing on blur, on change like this two times, you can just put a simple binding expression, dot dot dot, what is it? Formic dot get field properties, and which field? Field name. Field name is what? That's it. Now you can see that now this text box is going to respond. It is going to respond on blur. It will verify. It is going to respond on submit. It will verify. It is going to respond on change. We are not writing on change. If anyone asks you in interviews like, without writing on change, can I verify on change? Yes, we can do. Without writing on change, how you will verify on change? We will not write, we will spread. That means we don't need to write the methods. We can just spread all the methods. So that is one shortcut technique. But This is not a great idea every time. Why? Because every time, every event validation I don't want. I want validation only on submit. I want validation only on change. That depends. Remember, you cannot skip change. Change is compulsory. Why? Because two-way binding will not work without change. Change is mandatory. Blur optional. That depends on your requirement. So if you want validation to fire up on different events, all events, then better you write this syntax. That is important. Now, another important point is that another important point is actually Formic provides here one more concept: form state validation services. Form state validation services. Another concept is form state validation services. Actually, validations are done at two level: input state, form state. Input state means every verifying every field individually. Form state means verifying all fields at a time. That means you can verify all fields at a time. You can verify individually. Current what you have seen is input state validation. Input state means you are verifying every field. Why you need form state validation? For example, see, what is the condition? Condition is very simple. I don't want this submit button to work until or unless all are valid. I don't want the submit button to work until or unless all are valid. That is verifying all fields at a time. How you will do that? Not only that, you see some websites, they will show all errors in one place. That means they will ask you to fill the form. You go on filling the form, suppose like passport, visa, or some education application form. After filling at the end, last stage, they will show that there are these errors, please verify them. That means all errors they will put at one place. That means all the errors they will catch and display at one place. How we can show that? How we can display all errors at one place? How to verify? For example, not only this, suppose you see some websites, they give a save button. When you are designing a form, because it is a lengthy form, so much details we need to enter, they will give a facility that after filling few details you can save. And very important, you will also see that save button is not working until or unless you enter some data. If there are no changes, there is no need to save. If there are changes, then we have to save. How to verify all this? For that, they have a separate validation service. What is that? Is actually what is form state validation service? That means validation is defined at two levels. Two levels. One is input state validation and form state validation. So, input state validation is the process of verifying every field, every field individually. Form state validation is verifying all fields simultaneously, simultaneously at the same time. So Formic provides built-in form state services like touched, dirty, valid, invalid. So it have like errors. All these are form state services: touched, dirty, valid, invalid. So form state validation services are present. So validation services, these are important. Suppose I will show you what is the condition. Submit button should not work until or unless all are valid. That's the condition. So you see how, what is the meaning of these words? Touched means you clicked inside a element and you came out of that element. That is touched. Touched is nothing like focus. If any element get focus, then it is recognized as touched. Dirty means some change happened in the value. If a value is changed, then it is called dirty. Dirty, touched, valid, invalid, these are all Boolean. Boolean means they return true or false. That means valid means all are valid. Invalid means any one is invalid. So it will return true or false. For example, what is the condition here? Submit button should be disabled. Okay, let's go. And this is the submit button. So it have a property called disabled. Disabled is a Boolean property. That means it will take a condition. What is the condition? Disabled must be applied with true or false. What is the condition? If formic dot formic have dirty, if formic is so valid, if formic is valid, then what should happen? Disabled must be what it is? Disabled must be question mark. Question mark is ternary operator. That means if it is valid, what should happen? Disabled must be false. Disabled must be false. Otherwise, disabled must be true. Right? That means what we are doing here, they are
Yeah, brilliant.
Boolean. Actually, Boolean means they will
Brilliant.
start with is valid, is invalid, is the word Boolean. Touched and dirty are normal. Touched and dirty are normal. But all these are Boolean.